To-do apps are very important productivity tools. So in this tutorial, we're gonna learn how to create a very simple but useful to-do app where you can add a task, update a task, or also delete a task. So as a first step, let's define a model for our task. Inside the leave models, we have a task.dart. So let's create a class for our task. It has an is checked, ID, title, description, and also date created. Let's create a constructor for this and also implement equality and a hash code. As you see in the complete add, when we want to add or update a task, we are displaying a dialog. So let's create a method that returns the dialog. First of all, we create a method called open AddTaskDialog. This is after a future task. It has two properties. It first takes a context to display a dialog. Second, we pass it a task. This is for when we want to update a task. We need to pass the previous task to the dialog. And we also return a show dialog also of type task. Inside which we have two properties, one a context and one barrier dismissible, set it to false. This is because if we tab outside the dialog, it should not be dismissed. And lastly, we have a builder and return an add task dialog. So let's create our add task dialog. The first thing we do is defining two text fields, one for title and one for description. And then inside the init state, we initialize our text field to text editing controller. And inside this post method, we get rid of them to avoid memory leaks. So inside our build method, we return an alert dialog. We first have a title that is add task, as you see in the UI. We also provide a content as a column. Make sure to use main axis size and set it to mean to avoid the dialog from taking all the screen. Inside the children, we pass the text field for the title. We also pass a size box with a height of 10. And lastly, we pass the text field for description. Now let's define our actions. As you see here, we have two buttons, a cancel and also an add task. So the first button we define here is a cancel button. And the second button we define here is an add task. As you see, when we want to update a task, our title and description text field are filled by default. So we have to take care of that case. So inside the init state, if our widget.task is not null, it means if we are updating a task, we have to fill the title controller and description controller. So now let's take care of our cancel and add task button. So if you press the cancel button, we're just going to navigate out of the dialog. But if you press the on task button, we're creating a task. We are passing an ID, title, description, and date created. And also, if we want to update the task, I'm just going to replace my task with a new task. And the only difference is that this time we're getting our ID, date created, and is checked from previous task. And lastly, let's navigate out of the dialog, but this time, don't forget to pass a task. So this is the result of our dialog. So now let's define our UI for the TaskListTile. At the beginning, let's return a padding. We have a padding of 16 from all the sides. And then we have a row, because we have two parts, and we have the left part and we also have the right part. So for the left part, we have an expanded with a flex of 6, inside which we have a column. And for the right part, we have another expanded widget with a flex of 4, and inside which we have a row. So inside the left part, let's add two texts. The first text is our title, and the next text is our subtitle. You should notice that inside the decoration, we said that if the task is checked, we put a line through, otherwise this is null. So inside the right part, we have three buttons. The first button is a delete button with an icon of delete. Inside the onPress, we pass a onDelete handler. We have defined our onDelete handler inside the TaskListTile constructor. We also have an onEdit handler. So the second button is going to be an edit button. It is also using an onEdit handler as the onPress. And the last button is a checkbox. Its value is going to be the task.isChecked. And inside the onChange property, we change the task.isChecked and set it to the value. And lastly, we do a steady state to update the UI. So with this, our UI for the TaskListTile is complete. Now that we have defined all the parts, let's put them together and finish our application. So the first thing I'm going to do is to go inside the TasksScreen and define a floating action button. This is responsible for adding a task. So inside the onPress, we first of all make it async, and then we get a task from open AddTaskDialog, and we should await on it because it's a future. So then I'm going to check if the task is not null, If it is not null, I'm gonna add the task to the list of tasks. This is the list that I have defined inside our model, and this list is gonna hold all the tasks we have in this application. Right now I'm not using a database, but in the next section we're gonna be using Hive to store our tasks. After adding a task, let's set it and make sure that our task is displayed. So if we now hit save, you see that we have our floating action button, and if we click on it, open this dialog. So now let's take care of deleting or editing a task. Inside the onDelete, I'm gonna say go to the list of tasks and remove where the element.id is equal to the task ID. This is gonna delete our task according to the ID, and then we're gonna set state to update the UI. Inside the onEdit, we're gonna first of all make the function async, and then we're gonna get the new task. So updating a task is very similar to adding a task. We again use open AddTaskDialog, but this time we're gonna pass the previous task and get our new task. So let's check if the task is null. If it is not null, we first of all remove it from the list of tasks and add the new task at the beginning. So now we do a set state to update the UI. So now you see that we can edit a task or also delete a task.